Internet, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be talking about colour temperature. In simple terms, colour temperature is it's actually named pretty well, really. It's whether something is warm or cold just by their colour. So if we have an object, say an apple, that is out in the sun, then the parts that are in the light are going to be a warmer colour than the parts that are within the shadow. They're going to be cooler. And what we can do is we can basically caricature this in a way within our art to really push a certain mood or feeling and stylize nature, I guess. Now, the real way shadows and things like that work is that more of the complementary colour is added in. But as we're talking about stylizing things and caricaturing things somewhat, we can actually get really nice styles by just pushing the colour warmer or colder. Here is a colour wheel that you've probably seen before. There are different kinds of colour wheels, different types, but this is the one that they tend to teach in art school, and it derives from Aristotle created a colour wheel, and then Newton decided to put light through a prism, which had already done before. But everyone thought there was some wizardry going on with the actual glass prism, and that was creating these colours. Whereas Newton was the first one to take a look at this and go, well, actually within the light those colours exist, and the prism is just splitting those up. And then maybe 100 years or so, give or take, in the future, this colour wheel was kind of derived as the colours that were split from that prism, and it was kind of like, well, can we use this for artists? Because this kind of might as well. And it worked. Obviously, we've been using it for hundreds of years in different forms since then. So, talking about the actual colour temperature as a wheel doesn't make a great deal of sense. It can actually make things a lot more confusing. So, here are the colours in order of temperature in a straight line. This is worked out with physics and different wavelengths and things like that. All nonsense that it's not going to help us when creating artwork. And so these, when we was talking about the prism earlier, the color split, everything apart from the very last color is within light and is split within a prism. That very last color was added to kind of make the colour wheel work. If you're adding the red and the violet, and you're getting the red violet, then it kind of makes the colour wheel a little bit more elegant and everything like that. And it's a great colour, and it's used in a bunch of things to great extent. So don't feel like that colour is just irrelevant. But when we're talking about colour temperature, that colour not existing will kind of make things a little easier for us today. So let's ignore that colour just for now. So on the left hand side, things are warm, and on the right hand side, things get cooler. Now, this can be debated on whether things actually feel cooler. A lot of people feel like oranges feel warmer to reds, and that blues feel cooler than purples and things like that. So you can actually use this in your own way. Definitely use this in your own way. In fact, you should experiment. But for today, we're gonna talk about it like this. And this is the way I use it. I kind of tend to like the fact that purples are used cooler than blues. I just like the way that looks. So that's the way we're talking about it today. But again, experiment and play around with things. So how does this translate into the good world of Photoshop, for example? So here's the color picker, which you've seen millions of times before. And having that red at the top loop around makes things a little bit more complicated. So as we go up here, this is about where we want to stop with our coolness. And then as we come towards the reds at the bottom, that's going to be heating up. So if we're having the red at the top and the bottom looping round, that works in the sense of the color wheel. But when we're actually talking about color temperature, the way we're talking about it today, just let's just pretend it ends at the purple. Okay, so we have a blue now, and what we're going to do is we're going to just paint nothing really. It's kind of just a blob or a squiggle, and we're going to apply color temperature to it. For the sake of this video, we have a nice sun light source up there in the top left hand corner. I've just drawn it in just so it's a bit more visual as we're going along. So we're going to take the core color, just the root color of the object, and we're going to push it a little bit warmer. So drag it down towards that bottom, and then we're going to lighten it a little bit, because obviously we're going towards the light and we want to be thinking about values as we're going along. We want to be lightening things as they're getting into the light, not just changing the color so it gets warmer. Okay, so as you can see, we're just painting that in here, and then let's push this even warmer, because we're going to really go extreme for this. So we're going up towards that kind of really green blue color, and we're hitting like a highlight on there. So as you can see, the light's coming from the top left hand side. It's going to be hitting around where I was just painting just then, and it's going to get cooler as it gets further away from the light. So I'm just doing a quick little blend here just to make it look slightly more pretty, to be honest. There's no real reason to do it. So as it's getting further away from that light, it's having less of that influence of the light. It's getting less of that blue-green color in there, and it's bending round towards its core value and its core color, just the root of the shape. And that's what I've grabbed now. I've grabbed that core color, and let's bend it towards the cooler bit. So we're pushing it up towards that purple. So you can sometimes, some people go saturated with their shadows, some people desaturate. I just desaturate a little bit, but I did darken it a little bit as well, because again, thinking about those values. So as we paint that in there, we're now getting like a lot more of a, obviously the values are going to do that to give a bit more of a 3D feel to it, but it starts feeling a lot more dynamic, especially when you're pushing it like really cool now. You get this really, like I said, just dynamic and just caricatured version of color and temperature that makes this feel a lot more unique than something that's just painted where you're maybe raising the values slightly or pushing it slightly lighter. If you're actually affecting those colors and changing the colors to correspond with the light, in my opinion, you end up with a lot more of a more dynamic image, and that's just what I like creating within my own artwork. I could basically leave the video there, but I thought it would be a bit more beneficial if I went and just picked a different starting color and did exactly the same thing, so you can just see how it looks and how it feels, and again to just go over the process of creating those color temperatures. Now we are running through this a little quicker, but you understand the process now, so it's kind of, like I say, it's just reaffirming those things. But as we're going lighter, we're going to be edging more towards the yellow, because that's next to it in the color wheel. That's the next color along. We're going to be edging towards that, and then we're going to be going towards the blue colors when we're going into the shadows to just really hit home with that idea also. I thought it'd also make sense to show you how this would look without pushing things to the extreme, because these first two examples are quite extreme. They still look great, and you could use that in, let's say, a children's book illustration or something like that. But for something you want a little bit more subdued, then you would go to this approach that I'm doing with the purple. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. The only thing that I'm doing different is I'm not going as extreme. So what I mean by that is, if I'm pushing something more towards the warm, I'm not going really far towards the warm. I'm just going slightly, just edging it slightly. If I'm going cooler, the same thing. Just edge it slightly that way. And you still get that dynamic look and the feel of coolness within the shadows and feel of warmth within the highlights. You're still getting that, but just to a bit more of a toned down, usable experience. So if we make these black and white so you can see the values, you can see that as we're going more towards the shadows, we're going darker, The midtones are staying midtones, and as we're getting towards the highlights, we're going lighter. And you can see on that third example that I did there at the bottom, it's less extreme, especially when going towards the highlights. Now, we can use this same principle, and we can really up the contrast and really amplify those values and get really dark, and really alongside with that we can get really cool, and that's just going to create more and more dynamic images. Like I say, this stuff is flexible. You can use it very toned down as well and very slight. Okay, so I hope I've explained things to the best. Well, I've done it to the best of my ability. I hope it makes sense to you. If it does, then hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're still struggling with anything to do with color temperature, just let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see this done with more traditional paints, with acrylics, oils, possibly watercolor, things like that, then just let me know, and I'll put that on my list of videos to do. Okay, so until next time, have an awesome week, and I will see you later. Bye bye. If you want to support me and in turn grab some awesome goodies for yourself, such as early and extra videos and Google Hangouts with me from as little as $1 a month, head on over to patreon.com/aceconnell. I'll see you there.